We seen 3 officers on top of George Floyd.
And what did you do next? Did Alyssa park the car?
Yes.
And then what happened?
She pulled over and she asked if she should record it, and she didn't have a phone at the time, so she took my phone and recorded it.
And what were you doing when, did she get out of the car first?
Yes, she told me to stay in the car and leave the car in just in case anything happened. We didn't know what was going on.
So did you stay in the car for some period of time?
Yes.
So when you were in the car and Alyssa got out of the car, could you hear what was going on?
Yes, I could kind of hear what was going on.
All right.
I don't specifically remember exactly what was said, but I do remember hearing voices.
So tell the jury just what you remember noticing from where you were in the car. What were you hearing or seeing or observing?
I believe I heard George Floyd yelling still, saying he can't breathe. And then I heard witnesses that were there saying he was unresponsive. And that's when I started hearing voices getting louder, I got out of the car.
Okay. So I'm going to stop you there for just a second. You talked about George Floyd. You said you're here for George Floyd, and you're talking about seeing George Floyd. Did you know who he was at that time?
No.
After the fact, did you learn his name?
Yes.
Okay. So you now know him to be George Floyd.
Yes.
When you heard, you said you heard voices getting louder. What prompted you to get out of the car? What made you think you should get out of the car?
I guess it was kind of just a gut feeling.
When you said you heard voices getting louder, was there something about the tone or what was said that...
It sounded serious.
Okay. And what made you think it was something serious?
Just the way, like, everyone sounded.
Okay. So what did you do?
I got out of the car and I walked up, and that's when I saw George Floyd unconscious and Derek on his neck.
Okay. So I'm gonna break that down a little bit. You said you saw George Floyd unconscious. What made you think that George Floyd was unconscious when you saw him?
He wasn't talking anymore, and when we pulled up, he was talking. His eyes were closed. He wasn't moving.
And you said you saw Derek on top of him?
Yes.
And by Derek, do you mean Derek Chauvin?
Yes.
Did you know who that was at the time?
No.
Or did you learn his name later?
Yes.
So when you said that you saw Derek or Mr. Chauvin on top of George Floyd, what did you see Mr. Chauvin doing?
I saw him kind of digging his knee into his neck more. Like, he was putting a lot of pressure on his neck that wasn't needed.
And how could you tell, or what made you think from your point of view that Mr. Chauvin was putting more pressure on George Floyd's neck?
You could see it, like his foot movement.
So when you say digging, are you talking about the position of Mr. Chauvin's knee on Mr. Floyd's neck?
Yes.
Okay. So you come out to see Mr. Floyd, who was unconscious to you. What else do you see and hear going on around you?
The witnesses telling him to check for a pulse.
And what happened at that point? Did you see anybody check for a pulse or do anything at that point?
No, not that I saw.
Okay. Did you see Mr. Chauvin or anybody else move or change or get up off Mr. Floyd?
No.
Did you, were you concerned at that point in time?
Yes.
Were you saying anything once you got into that group of people.
Yes, I asked, why are you guys still on top of him? He's not doing anything wrong. He was handcuffed.
And after you said that, was there any response from any of the officers? Did any of them move? Did Mr. Chauvin move?
No,
Did any of them address your concerns?
no. They were really hostile.
When you say hostile, tell the jury what you mean by that.
The tone in their voice was really, well, the officer Tao's voice was really angry.
So was Officer Tao interacting with the people on the
Yes.
street at that point? I'm sorry, is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, so you just have to wait until I'm done asking before you answer.
Sorry.
That's okay, I do it too. Okay, so Officer Tao appeared hostile. Can you just describe what he was doing that made you feel that way?
He pushed one of the witnesses there onto the sidewalk.
And did you know that person?
No,
Did you see anybody being, any of the, you said witnesses, but any of those bystanders, any of those people on the curb with you, were any of those people being violent or aggressive in any way?
no.
But you saw
They were
Mr.
just using their voice.
Okay. So you heard people using their voices, but saw Mr. Officer Tao being hostile.
Yes.
What else did you see? Did you see any of the other officers who were there at that, when you were on the curb?
Not when I was on the curb.
And what about Mr. Chauvin? Did you see him?
Yes.
And what did you, how would you describe his body movement or body language at that point?
Kind of angry, like,
So I'm gonna stop you there, but tell me what he was doing with his body.
he was like digging his knee into George Floyd's neck.
Did you notice anything else about him, Mr. Chauvin, reaching for anything or touching his mace or anything like that?
Yes, he did grab his mace and started shaking it at us.
And how did you feel at that point?
Scared,
And why did you feel scared then?
because I didn't know what was gonna happen.
And were you scared of Mr. Chauvin or scared of Mr. Floyd or something else?
I was scared of Chauvin.
At that point that you saw Mr. Chauvin go for his mace, was there anybody in your group of witnesses or bystanders that were, again, being violent or attacking in any way?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna put up Exhibit 184, please.
This is rough stuff. It's rough stuff. That's 17 years old.
In front of you.
Yeah.
Out here, people are having a hard time with that.
Yeah.
Can you see yourself in this picture?
Yes.
Can you just circle yourself on that screen? It's a touch screen. Use your finger. And do you see anyone else you recognize there?
Melissa.
And you circled Alyssa second. What is Alyssa doing there?
She's recording.
And is that your cell phone she has?
Yes.
And what were you doing at this point?
I was telling Donald Williams, I believe his name is. I was like, because the cop, I think, pushed him. I don't exactly remember, but I told him, like, don't, like, because I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't want anybody, like, fighting the cops or anything like that, because
Okay.
I knew it'd escalate.
Did you know Donald Williams at that time?
No.
Did you learn his name somehow after the fact?
Yes.
Was there anybody fighting with the cops?
No.
Was there any fight that happened with any of those bystanders with
No.
the cops? Were you concerned for everybody's safety?
Yes.
Okay. And at some point, did you see, we can take that down. Did you see an ambulance arrive?
Yes.
And what was going on at that point in time?
The ambulance pulled up and Derek was still on his neck. The ambulance people had to signal him to get up.
And you just made a motion with your hands. When you say signal him to get up, did you see a paramedic make a motion to Mr. Chauvin that looked to you like a get up kind of motion?
Yes.
Okay. After the paramedics arrived, was that the first time that you saw Mr. Chauvin get up off Mr. Floyd?
Yes.
And how did Mr. Floyd look to you? What did his condition appear to be to you?
He looked kind of like purple, like he wasn't getting enough circulation.
Oh my God.
And was he moving or talking or anything at that point?
He was really limp.
Okay. And I know this is tough to talk about, and I know it's hard, so take your time, but what did you think at that moment?
Well, I didn't know for sure if George Floyd was dead until after the fact, but I had a gut feeling.
So, based on what you saw and how his body looked to you when they took him away, did he look dead to you at that point?
Yes.
And did you see anybody until the paramedics arrived, any of the officers attempt to render first aid or CPR, or get any medical help before that?
No.
Nothing further.
Sure. They're taking a sidebar of some of the reactions on Twitter. Was saying, I'm 50 years old. Yeah, just hold on a second. I'm going back. Okay. That was the defense going to the sidebar because they're they're in big trouble. And they know it.
They're gonna take a quick break. We'll take a quick break. Be back in a moment.
Yeah, because folks, that's something else. They that underage kid testimony, that's almost as devastating as the action itself, don't you think, Ma?
Yeah.
That
That young woman have to remember that, and she knew it was wrong all the time.
yeah, that's sad. And what's sad about the system is that you have to be dispassionate, non-emotional. It basically got to be some sort of sociopath to give a testimony that's credible. I mean, that's ridiculous. I think these eyewitnesses are haunted and will be haunted forever by what they saw. Another human being murdered in front of them. They may have wanted to push the officer off, intervene, but they know better. They knew Derek Chauvin's guilty. These underage witnesses are kicking butt today while Derek Chauvin appears to be doodling. Courtney H., what the fuck is Chauvin taking notes for? I despise that man. Loser, murderer, sociopath.
Yeah, that's what he is.
And your wife feels ill. I watched trials before Scott Peterson, Casey Anthony, and George Zimmerman all in full. And something about the Derek Chauvin trial is hitting me 100 times harder. Maybe because I know this murder is caught red-handed on camera and MFers blame the victim. Justice for George Floyd.